Answer.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
I love America. I love the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I want to carry and all else. I love it. Property. And let me tell you something. If you care about your country, read Ludwig von Mises and the 6 lessons of the Austrian Economic School, motherfuckers.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
The massive explosion of illness from behavioral, physical, autoimmune. What could explain it? Well, I think the vaccine needs to be looked at, but prior to that, there was also a major problem, as we were the country with the most amount of people on food stamps, and yet among people who were on welfare and food stamps, what was the biggest problem? Obesity. So maybe it's the food. It was the food before the vaccine, and it's the food after, and it's the food right now. My next guest spent her life studying this. She's author of the book, Hands Off My Food, How to Defend Your Food, Health, and Freedom. It is out now. She is Dr. Sina McCullough. How are you, Doc?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It really is something when you look at mass explosion of all of these illnesses, when you compare them to age categories from, say, the 70s or even the 80s or even the 50s. And if you further you go back, I think the bigger the problem is today than it's ever been. And I don't just mean the imported consumption referred to as TB that the illegal aliens are bringing to Chicago. There seems to be a massive amount of problems that coincides with when the cigarette companies bought the food companies, isn't it?
Oh, you're exactly right. It was pretty much the same playbook that they used to, get us addicted to cigarettes and to lie and cover it up that they weren't causing sickness. They used pretty much the same playbook to get like ultra-processed foods on the market and lots of synthetic chemicals that are added to those foods to intentionally make them addicting. And then that information was known and was covered up. So it's the same playbook, same story.
So one of the interesting things that history reveals is the diabolical nature of man and how things can easily be corrupted to be monopolized. And this was my argument against unlimited money in politics. I knew where this was going to go, but the groundwork had been laid before this. I mean, after all, it was Rockefeller that financed pharmaceutical companies, which is why they're still delivering medicine in petroleum, which makes absolutely zero sense. So is it the same diabolical players that corrupted the idea that we could go from cigarettes to food? Because I'll tell you what, if you go back throughout our own history and you look at health in this country, from cancer to autoimmune diseases to neurological to obesity, I think you're better off with the camels than you are with the food. What do you think?
Yeah. I actually never heard that. But, I mean...
My old man, 3 packs of Camels a day, 82 years old. I mean, he was going to die of something. But when you go back and, I love old radio, like Johnny Dollar and Richard Diamond, all the old radio shows. And I love how it all starts with a key. Your doctor recommends more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette out there. I mean, that was my dad's defense. I grew up, I was listening to Camels on the air. So when you really go back, and even cancer has exploded since smoking's gone down, hasn't it?
Yes. We're having people getting cancer at younger ages now than we've ever seen. This is a massive problem that we're seeing, and we know that it is related to the food. The way that I think of it is this: I can cite a ton of studies showing you that all of these different autoimmune and chronic diseases have exploded recently because of the food, particularly the changes we've made in the last 60 years, like introduction of more pesticides and herbicides, GMOs, farmer crops, the 10,000 synthetic chemicals that are in our food supply today that the FDA doesn't even track, and most of them they're not even aware of. But the real evidence for me is in real life. So the way that we can actually heal people from these chronic and autoimmune diseases, and I mean fully reverse them, not put them into remission, fully reverse, the way we do that primarily is through food. So we take out these toxicities that they're consuming, when they start consuming clean food. And about 60% of the people that I work with and other functional medicine doctors work with, you can literally just change the food alone, like change it from, taking out the food sensitivities, the food allergies, taking out all these adulterants. And in 60% of those people, you can actually completely heal from these diseases that mainstream medicine and science are still telling us are death sentences.
Well, it's a fascinating reality when you compare American illness in America, specifically cancer, is really shocking. Even heart disease. And you compare it to a country that is, say, a second world country like India. India has dramatically less cancer, dramatically less heart disease, dramatically less neurological disease. So it's clearly something. It's clearly the uptick in the monopolies over our food. But there's also some other stuff that goes in it, because when you say organic, they manipulated this now. When I say they, I'm talking about the food industrial complex. You don't even know if something's organic anymore. It could say organic, and you find out, it's right next door to a Monsanto field, and, wind blows. So how do you really know if it's organic? How do you really verify that the food you're buying that you say, and I love the word clean, too. I really do. And you say, I'm get this clean food. What's the best way to guarantee you're going to get the clean food?
Well, the number one way to guarantee is clean food is to grow your own. And then for those busy people like myself, if that's not an option, the second best is to find a farmer that you trust. And this is easier today than it ever has been, because now we have some real reputable farmers that are shipping their products across the country. So we have farms like, Polyface Farm and, Ed Elzinga over at Alder Springs Ranch. These are really great principled farmers, freedom-loving farmers who are growing and raising food that's, clean and ecologically viable. So we have options today. You're absolutely right that when you go into the grocery store, even if it says organic, it can be contaminated, like you mentioned, from drift. And things like glyphosate are water soluble. They're so ubiquitous now that it gets in the water supply. It could be, used as irrigation water on the crop. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the USDA organic label is a paper trail in large part. So they're not going out there and testing, for example, soil samples to see, is there glyphosate in this soil? They're not testing to see, is this seed genetically modified? So at most, that might happen about 5% of the time. So what you're really doing is you're trusting an entire paper trail, which has known to be corrupted. I mean, we have imported grains from Turkey, for example, that said they were organic grains.
Yeah.
And there were more grains that were actually, they were shipping in more grains to us saying they were organic than they can even actually produce. So it's not even mathematically possible. But there's also other issues with the organic label. For example, you can have a pig raised on a concrete slab, and that's organic. You can have a chicken in a confined animal feeding operation, and as long as it's not in an individual cage inside that building, then that can be organic. So there's a lot of different loopholes that are in it. When I walk into the grocery store, to answer your question, the way that I best protect myself and my family from, glyphosate, GMOs, for example, sewage sludge, conventional crops can be grown in sewage sludge, which even the CDC itself says that the sewage sludge contains remnants of pharmaceutical drugs and heavy metals. So if you can imagine your conventional crops being grown in those chemicals, that's another way we get sick. So when I go into the grocery store, I partner the USDA 100% organic label with 2 third-party labels. And so this already tells you how complex our system is and how many loopholes it contains, because you have to look for 3 different labels to secure as best you can that the food is organic.
It's insane. It's false advertising. Why isn't anybody getting hit with a false advertising claim? I mean, the fact that we have to go through all these hoops means you're cheating me, or I wouldn't have to go through all these hoops. Why doesn't anybody sue?
Well, I mean, because it's corrupted.
Okay, fair enough.
There was actually a big movement, and there is still a big movement. It's called the Real Organic Project. This is a group of farmers who has been standing up against these organic loopholes and labeling fallacies, and they've been like screaming at the top of their lungs saying, hey, this is not really organic anymore. Like, this is not the way that the system was set up. What are we doing here? And they went to bat, and they've been losing. They've lost over and over again. So those farmers actually gave up on the organic label, and they created their own label, which is actually called like Real Organic. So you can find that in grocery stores today. I mean, that's how upset farmers are about this. They're giving the organic, the government and big farms, industrial farms, have corrupted that label, diluted it down so much that it practically means nothing today. So farmers went out and did their own label.
Well, and we have the greatest. To me, we have the greatest bar to always measure all of this to, and it's the Amish. The Amish it's a staggering difference from cancer to autism to neurological autoimmune diseases to all. I mean, it's unbelievable, because these people are the ones who live the exact way you should when it comes to food and medicine and the rest of it. And is this something when you're looking at this? Do you use other countries as a barometer? Do you use the Amish, who just separate from what most Americans put into their kids and their bodies themselves? I mean, there is no question that now everything is worse. And when you look at the people who are the players in the food business, when you look at the idea that Bill Gates, for instance, this diabolical bastard with his eugenics and all the rest of it, and you look at this scoundrel, he's in everything from fake fracking meat to this spray that they're putting on food that's marked organic. If for poor people, right? Walmart, it says organic, but they spray it with this garbage you can never wash off. What's it called? Peel or whatever the hell it is. So this has to come to an end. And I felt like RFK Jr. was really going to be a savage. And I really was hoping he would. And I think he's done some good things. But I'm wondering if you think it's good enough. We're a year and 2 months into it. There's been some other major successes in the Trump administration. I'm a little disappointed in my RFK Jr. What do you think?
Yes, I am too. Can I just add something before I answer that question?
Yes.
This might shock you. Did you know that the Amish are getting sick too? So
sure, because they're those TV shows, they let them mingle with the riffraff, the regular people. Get them away from the regular people.
Yeah, they are. That is the exact problem. So I actually just got back from Ohio giving a talk in front of a large Amish community. They asked me to come out there because their community is getting sick. And so they're trying to figure out why they're getting sick and how they can reverse it. And I'll tell you, the reason they're getting sick is because they're starting to eat like us.
Yes.
And they're starting to vaccinate like us. So like their last generation bought into the whole vaccine thing. And so now they're getting sick and they're seeing their kids sick. So it's even amongst the Amish now. We used to think of them as our control group, and that has crumbled now. So that's just an interesting side. But here's what I'll say about Kennedy. I have an entirely different perspective than most people, because I understand the history of our FDA and our national food laws. So Kennedy, for me, his biggest accomplishment was that he brought an elevated level of awareness that we've never seen before in terms of the adulteration of our food supply. That's a huge win. You have 20-year-olds now that are looking at labels for the first time in their lives. So that is his biggest accomplishment that he will probably ever get to make. I mean, right now, he's pretty much been, knocked down at the knees. I think he's been immobilized. So when he got into office, I actually thought that this is one of the worst things that could have happened for the food movement, because people put that veil down over their eyes again, that veil of trust. They just thought that we were going to have this top-down savior that come in and fix the food supply. And so a lot of people took their hands off the wheel again. And then we saw the executive order that Trump handed down for glyphosate, and people were outraged, saying that they were like stabbed in the back, they were betrayed by Trump and by Kennedy, because Kennedy, of course, supported Trump's executive order. But here's the thing. The federal FDA was set up in a way that manufacturers were to provide proof of safety of their own products. Okay, like that's literally the way that the FDA was set up. A company determines if its own product is safe.
Yes. It's great. Get it out there like OxyContin. You'll be okay.
Yes, exactly. And then, so the FDA role was to make sure that the labels were transparent, right? They're in charge of labels. But then there's a third pillar of our national food laws. That's the consumer. The consumer was always supposed to be the final judge. So it's up to us to decide what's actually on the market. That's not actually the job of the FDA, and people don't understand that. So, like when we have things like the grass loophole, generally recognized as safe, where companies are saying, like, companies get to certify their own chemicals as safe, and they don't even have to notify the FDA that they put a new chemical on the market. They actually just hire some quote-unquote expert to declare the chemical safe. The expert usually has ties to industry or to the same company that it's hired to confirm that this chemical is safe. And it can immediately go into our food supply. There's no review by the FDA. There's no testing. There's no waiting period. And if the company wants to, they can notify the FDA that they put this chemical on the market. They can petition for GRAS status, is what it's called. But the thing is, that process of notifying the FDA is actually voluntary. And the way it got voluntary is the FDA itself made the process voluntary. So they don't even know how many chemicals are on the market. It's estimated that there's 10,000 chemicals. We're estimating that about 99% of all the chemicals that were introduced into our food since 2000 actually came through this GRAS loophole.
Sina.
So here's an example of Kennedy, because go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish. I want you to finish.
Okay. So people get upset when they hear about that, and they're like, Kennedy ran on this platform that he was going to close this GRAS loophole. Well, here's the thing. He can't actually completely close that GRAS loophole, because the GRAS loophole came out of the 1958 Food Additive Amendment. So Congress actually created the loophole in a law. Congress is the one that has to close it. So I never expected Kennedy to fix the GRAS problem, because he legally can't.
He's handcuffed. But do you know what's mind-boggling? When you see these local governments in these Democrat, as I call them, mafia areas, and they tell the retailer, the restaurant owner, what he's got to pay his workers, right? This is the big thing now. I don't know. I'm sure you're aware. California, you got to pay $20 and this and that and the other thing. And then you look at the product itself. And I don't care if we're talking about McDonald's, Burger King, or Taco Bell, which was in a tremendous scandal when they found out that the meat in the so-called Taco Bell was plastic, right? And I live in Florida, and all these old people, they're very funny, right? And their news is funny. It's kind of like watching college kids try to do news, right? Because they're all young and you're dealing with old people and there's no crime. So they have to make up these little episodes. I don't know if I told you about this. And a guy has a McDonald's burger, right? And he says, look at this, And I said, oh, that looks bad. But the packaging, you could see the packaging was old. The burger was from 1991. He bought it when he moved down here, kept it on his shelf for a week. He told his wife, why didn't you throw it out? He opened it up. He said it was still good. He said, so he folded it up. He left it out. Did not put it in the refrigerator or the freezer. The burger's from 91. All that looks is the hamburger bun looks a little stained. What the hell is it? Do we know what's in these meats? Because if you can pay a guy $20 an hour and you sell me a product for $5, that's not meat. That isn't even close to meat. And if you ever see the new CFO, did you see this moron? with his butter hands try to eat the new McDonald's thing. He was like feeding himself poison. He didn't want to eat it. He knew. What is it? Do we know what's in these meats?
Well, they list on their website what they're willing to tell you is in the meat.
Is any of it meat?
I know. Well, they're claiming that it is meat, but I've looked at the website too, and then I've seen the demos of the burgers sitting there for months and years, and I'm like, there has to be some massive preservatives in there for that thing to not be sold. I mean, it's beyond me how we got to this point where we're willing to put these things in our bodies. You know, it really
wasn't
does
for those
come back
stupid suspenders and that ridiculous hat. You tell these Amish they have more people participating, but I can't walk around looking ridiculous. I'm kidding. I don't want to get the Amish mad. They've somehow solved this whole heat thing with that machine they got. I can't wait to get one of those. Dr. Sina McCullough, the book Hands Off My Food, How to Defend Your Food, Your Health, Your Freedom. Once again, I did it. I wanted to talk about your autoimmune disease, but we went all the way through it. You cured it with food, and the answer is in the book, isn't it?
Yes, it's partly in the book, yes.
All right. Well, it's always a pleasure having you on. You know, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and give my best to the Amish.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Marxists, socialists, and communists are not welcome on the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Platform safety is critical at your commercial and industrial facility. Keeping people safe and meeting OSHA requirements isn't optional. That's why Vans Industrial offers free platform inspections by professional structural engineers who know exactly what to look for. Problems with platforms, ladders, or stairs can lead to costly fines or worse. Vans Industrial helps you meet OSHA standards to protect people in your facility.